tremor.
That is an actual earthquake.
Wow.
What up, everybody? Welcome to the Smoking Tire Podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Off the Record. As always, we love Off the Record. My buddy just called me and said, hey, Matt, I got a little problem. Just picked up my new Porsche, and on the first day, on the way home from the dealership, got a big old ticket. I sent him to Off the Record, and they have handled it. That's right, fully handled it. Dismissed. Off the Record is a service that connects you to qualified attorneys in the area where you get a ticket. Any moving violation, big, small, don't matter to Off the Record. They will help. All you have to do is go to offtherecord.com/TST or download the Off the Record app and use code TSTPOD. That's TSTPOD. And they will connect you to an attorney who will help you get those points off your record. Points on your record could affect employment, could affect insurance, all kinds of things. Don't plead guilty. Go to Off the Record. And if you use our code, that's offtherecord.com/TST or code TSTPOD on the Off the Record app, 10% off all legal services booked through Off the Record. We love them, and you will too. Folks, it's a big one today. We are very much honored by the presence of one of the Holy Trinity themselves, James May, of Top Gear, of the Grand Tour, and now the purveyor of the very delicious James Gin. He's on the Gin Pitch Tour, doing all the LA shows, and he sat down with us and we talked about production. We talked about some of our favorite Top Gear moments. We talked about the writing process. We talked about gin. We talked about British pubs. We talked about collecting random tools and all kinds of things. Let me tell you something, folks. James May does not disappoint as being James May. He is exactly the James May that you want, and we got him in studio. Let's go. It's the Smoking Tire Podcast with James May.
Because I've got a really nice Victorinox one, which is a watchmaker's, well, watch repairer's pen-up. And it's got like a little fold-out section that's got a handle and then various small screwdrivers and what's it?
Like a spring bar tool?
Yeah, exactly. And it's got all that, and it's got a magnifying glass on it and a watch case opener.
That's actually pretty cool.
Oh, it's a superb piece of kit, but it's still got the blade on it. And you don't need that at all.
I mean,
surprised they didn't.
I'm tempted to just take an angle grinder and just cut the blade off. And if they say anything at the airport, I'll go, no, it doesn't have a blade.
Yeah, the trouble is they're not programmed to work like that. So they'll probably.
Well, if you cut the blade off but left it in the little thing.
Yeah, but they'll just say it's a leather and therefore it's not allowed.
They took my camping butter knife when I was traveling, which I mistakenly left in a suitcase, but it's literally a butter knife made of titanium.
They confiscated, I mean, this is going back to quite soon after 9/11. They took a pair of nail clippers off me, a little miniature pair, because they had a tiny nail file. Honestly, it was about 1.5 inches long.
What?
The idea that you could somehow stab an aircrew to death.
Right.
I'm going to clip your fingers.
Yes, I'm going to clip you starting at your nose.
Well, we are now live. We're going to dive in and do you want to just start with a beverage? What is the correct pour? What are we doing here?
What are the kinds of gins?
You've got 3 of my gin, so I'm here basically plugging gin because I'm a tart. That's the 3 I've brought with me are Asian parsnip, which is our original one, but in the Navy strength. That's a little bit lethal.
Okay.
London drizzle, but I think you should have American Ramstud, as it's called here. It's actually called American mustard. It's our thank you to the American nation for all the help it's given us over the years.
With what specifically?
Oh, all sorts of stuff, you know. But it's a gin infused with the essence of America, which is, of course, hot dog mustard.
Hot dog mustard and gunpowder or something?
Well, it smells great. So 1.5 ounces, I imagine, is the ratio?
Roughly.
Is that right about there?
Yeah, it's a sort of 2 and a bit second pour for me.
Okay. I assume you're having one.
Of course, thank you.
Matt, can I taste it without tonic water first?
Yes, of course.
I just want to taste it genuinely.
A raw dog sip. Here, you can use the ice cup.
Swig it from the bottle.
For a raw dog sip. And we've got, I like Fever Tree tonic.
I do as well.
They've not paid us for me to say that, but
no, we have no association with Fever Tree, but I do recommend it because it's not too sugary.
It's good. Well, listen, this is a real treat for us. It was
Oh, wow.
It was the 2006-2007 era of Top Gear that when I first discovered it through that the torrent sites, because we didn't get it broadcast, that I
Yes.
said, this is what I want to do. This is what the career is going to be. And since the BBC is not hiring, we're going to have to figure it out on the budget on YouTube. So I really appreciate that you're actually here. This is a very, very much a treat for Zach and I.
No, thank you. It's a treat for me, and it's worth pointing out that, of course, you are still here, and Top Gear, of course, isn't. So,
Well,
so your choice, your wisdom was good.
Yeah, it worked out all right. It was in the beginning. It was
Thank
really
you.
very much. We thought that YouTube would be a rolling audition for television, and when they were cast, because I auditioned for the U.S. Top Gear.
Oh, right.
Originally, and it didn't happen. And I was like, well, we should just make videos, and maybe the next time they'll call.
Well, we were talking about this earlier on with, if you don't mind me mentioning them, Donut Media.
Yeah.
Because
Cheers.
there was this conceit at the time that TV would influence YouTube. Well, actually, it was the other way around. And let's be honest, I used to be on TV, and now I'm on YouTube.
You joined us on the internet. Yeah.
Does, that job outside looking in, how's my ratio? All right?
It's pretty bloody good,
Okay,
actually.
cool.
Yes.
There we go. So it seems that
That's a
some
delicious-
call that alcoholism.
It's gone midday, so
Yeah,
you're all
right. It's
yes.
12:10, so
Yep.
we're in the clear.
Yeah.
So what, outside looking in, Top Gear and subsequently Grand Tour, if you like cars, is the best job that exists. Outside looking in.
Yeah.
And now you've gone from that for 25 years or maybe
Almost.
more.
No, it's almost 25, yeah.
To now making YouTube videos.
About sandwiches.
Yeah. And so, do you agree that inside looking out that was the best job if you love cars, or is it intentionally that way for a television show, but the reality is not the same?
No, the reality is never exactly the same as it appears on screen, because
Of course.
obviously it's edited and it's done for entertainment purposes. But the fact is, we all came to it from a background in writing about cars. Hammond's case, doing a bit of cable TV, talking on the radio. We all loved the subject, and we had this happy coming together where we had a bit of a chemistry thing going on, and we started making Top Gear in the belief that it might last for a few years, and then the next thing you know is we're grey and haggard and stooped. We're still fucking doing it until the end of this year, when we will finally stop.
Yeah. Well,
That's
some of
the
that
end.
stuff is incredibly physically abusive.
It is for us, because we're all pretty feeble.
I mean, and forget crashing an Evo into a wall and stuff like that. But
Yes.
even when it goes well, it can be pretty brutal, huh?
Well, at times it was very hard work. You're crossing a desert, that sort of thing. Your car breaks down constantly. You're driving some old shitter. But you can't really put your hand up and say, oh, my job on Top Gear or the Grand Tour is so grueling, because no one, apart from the fact that no one would ever believe you,
Yeah.
it's not really true, because a lot of people would do what we do as an expensive holiday and the adventure of a lifetime, and we were doing it for a job.
Right.
It's bloody remarkable.
I believe you.
Really.
I get it. I see it. I know how that stuff is made, and so both can be true. It
They
can
are
be
both
great
true.
fun. It can be amazing, but also you need a massage every day for a week at the end of summer.
Well, yeah, certainly after driving a beach buggy across a washboard road all day. Yes, I think we probably didn't do our spines any favours, or our digestive systems. I mean, you'll know this if you're out shooting stuff, or even if you're doing stuff in a studio like this. You tend to end up, apart from drinking gin, available on jamesgen.com.
Link in bio.
You eat a lot of link in bio. You eat a lot of beige food and snacks, sweets, buns, pork pies, burgers, and things.
We call it craft services.
Yeah,
Do they call it, is that what they call it in the UK
No,
also?
but I've heard that expression.
Yeah, it's
And
junk. It's straight
It
junk.
is. We usually refer to it as the beige diet.
Yeah.
And it's not healthy. I mean, it's great, but
Yeah, no, it's
With-
not a good way to stay
With a
healthy.
show of your scale, because we've done TV stuff, but it was a smaller scale. So for us, the food, it seemed like the job and the film was always the first priority, and the second and the third, and then food, rest, etc. were far down the ladder. Was that the case
that's
as well?
exactly right. I mean, it got better towards the end, because we got quite fond of ourselves, I suppose. In the early days, In the early days, it was definitely carrier bags full
By
of
the
stuff
time it
from
got
a
to Amazon,
supermarket.
it was like, listen, here, this is how this is going to go.
Now we'll have a chef on that campsite. Yes,
You saw Bezos's clocking a mountain, and you said, "I would like a snack bar."
but you're still right. The film always came first, and we always used to spend the money on the films, not on fancy restaurants.
Yeah.
We did eat better towards the end.
There was a few good stops along the way, but even watching it, I mean, part of the greatness of that show is being able to relate to the misery of the hosts in certain cases.
Oh, I agree. I think the audience liked it best when we were having a terrible time.
Yeah.
And we were driving terrible cars.
Yeah.
It just makes better TV.
It
it's
does.
better entertainment.
Yeah.
And part of it is, I mean, we like to tell ourselves, well, we're having an adventure so that you don't have to. You know, you can have this adventure across Vietnam vicariously because we're doing it for you. But the reality is, a certain part of people hate us for it and want to see us get wet, miserable, fall off, fall down, starve, camp in a desert, fall in a river.
Well,
catch fire,
the segments lean into that stuff.
Yes.
I mean, they're very aware of that type of thing.
We didn't shy away from it. We knew that we had to. You can't. With a program like that, you can't really make a buddy movie where we're all going along, you know, punching each other on the shoulder, going, "Hey, we're having a great time, aren't we, pals?"
Yeah.
You know, because that's just nauseating.
Yeah.
They'd much rather see two of us gang up on the other one. Really,
For
that's how
sure.
it works.
For
yeah.
sure. I'm sure you're asked all the time, but do you have a particularly standout adventure as your favorite?
I am asked that a lot, and I'm never sure because in my memory, it's all one road trip that went on for 20 years, but.
It's a good way to put it.
Yeah, it's a nice way to think about it,
Yeah.
actually, because I don't have to get the facts quite right. I can just mix it up. But beach buggies, there was a moment when we were in Namibia and I got separated from the other two because I had some sort of small problem in the ignition or whatever. And I drove across from the sea inland over those sand dunes as the sun was going down on my own in a beach buggy. And I remember it was a magical moment and it was great fun. And I also thought, you know, I never, ever predicted this. If at the age of 15 or even 20, if someone had said, okay, what's the most unlikely scenario you're going to end up with as a job?
Yeah.
I could never have conjured that up. It was
It's so
too
funny that
surreal.
you picked that exact thing because Anthony Bourdain, the very first time he went to the Sahara Desert and he was sitting on a sand dune at sunset with some like Bedouins who had made some, you know, meal in the desert. And he was sitting there and he said, you know, 2 years ago I was cooking French fries.
Yeah.
And I never would have ever thought that this is how I earn a living.
No, you can't invent it.
Yeah. And that was, you know, Top Gear and Anthony Bourdain was sort of the inspiration for like my whole life. And in fact, have you met JF Musial before? Do you know JF?
No.
He was our producer in the early days. He now does a lot of OEM sponsored films for like Koenigsegg and Porsche and stuff like that. He's a great cinematographer and director.
He also directs the Top Gear YouTube channel stuff with Rob Dahm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And so we, in like 2007, reverse engineered a couple of episodes of Top Gear. From a technical standpoint, 0 seconds to 3 seconds, car slides, 3 to 5, et cetera, for the whole hour show. And it's like a 20-page document because we were like, how do we make this? And we did the same thing with, and I think it was No Reservations at the time. And we reversed it and we went like, well, we could make a variant of this with less money. I mean, it won't be the whole thing, but we could do it. And that was like, that sort of made it possible, which was sort of interesting. But it leads me to the question of how much of that, of everything that goes on in an episode was planned versus spontaneous and adapt. I mean, obviously you can't plan a shitbox breaking down, but aside from that.
I think the way I always explain it is that it's true but not real. Obviously, we spend 2 or 3 weeks making a special, but the TV show is an hour and a half long.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's true in that it's a genuine depiction of events. And we would often start off with a plan, obviously, and we've got some points to hit. And we believe we know how the story goes. But the truth is, by the time it's happened and it's edited and it's put on the telly, it's what's happened in the meantime. It's that, you know, the old life is what happens when you're making plans for other things argument. So I would say 20% of it is a plan or sticks to the plan, about 80% of what you actually see on the screen is simply what happened and our reaction to it.
If your car breaks down and the other two leave you behind, I assume you're not left alone. There is some type of support vehicle, right?
Usually I've got my own crew with me to film it.
Right.
But they stand off, their priority is filming it, not helping me.
And you're fixing the car yourself?
Often I do quite a bit of fixing. We have had professional bush mechanics with us for more difficult stuff. There have been bits like in the desert in Namibia again. I was left by myself. I was left by myself somewhere else in the snow because...
That's a fucking earthquake.
Is that an actual tremor?
That is an actual earthquake.
Wow.
It's ongoing.
It's amazing. Yeah. Your friend Gus asked about those
you just asked about earthquakes,
ago,
and that was one.
And that moved your absolutely solid table as well.
It did. You know what it didn't move?
It didn't move anything.
It didn't move the cars. It didn't move the lifts.
I literally just told Gus the building's rated to a 12.
That's a fucking earthquake, bro. Welcome to L.A. Kids, we got to take a break for DeleteMe. We love DeleteMe. They've been with us for just a minute now, and they are awesome because someone could be you, it could be a family member, a friend, has been identity thefted, harassed, scammed, or annoyed by spam and robocalls, and you're going, how did they even get my number? Privacy is important, and we don't value it enough because our convenience is causing us to send out information into the world, right? We order things online, we sign up for websites, we use our credit cards, we use our personal info, and then it's out there in the world, and people sell that data, making us very easy targets. But we can protect ourselves. We can get peace of mind with DeleteMe. DeleteMe is a service that finds and removes any personal information that you don't want online, and they make sure it stays off. It's a subscription service, not a one-time thing, that removes your personal information from the largest people search databases on the web, and in the process helps prevent potential ID theft, doxing, and phishing scams. All you've got to do is sign up and provide DeleteMe with exactly the information that you want deleted. Their experts take it from there. DeleteMe then sends you regular personalized privacy reports showing what info they found, where they found it, and what they removed. To put it simply, DeleteMe does all the hard work of wiping you and your family's personal information off the web. Data brokers hate DeleteMe. When you signed up, DeleteMe immediately goes to work scrubbing all your personal information from data broker platforms, and your personal profile is no longer theirs to sell. So take control of your data and keep your private life private by signing up for DeleteMe. Now we've got a special discount for TST listeners. You can get 20% off your DeleteMe plan when you go to joindeleteme.com/tire and use promo code TIRE at checkout. The only way to get 20% off is to go to joindeleteme.com/tire and enter code TIRE at checkout. That's joindeleteme.com/tire. Use code TIRE at checkout. Now, back to the show.
Well, the last one I experienced was in Japan. It wasn't quite as good as that one.
It was at Fukushima?
It wasn't that far away from Fukushima.
Wow.
It wasn't that one. No.
Yeah. No, that was one of the bigger ones I've felt here.
Yeah.
This is a strong building.
Just as well, eh?
Yeah. Fucking welcome to California, James.
Yeah. Lovely.
Sorry, left alone. Yeah.
When did that practice of you guys being left to fix the car start? And then did you go home and think, I need to brush up on my mechanic abilities because I don't want to sleep in the desert again?
Well, I'm not bad at spannering and stuff because I'm sort of quite meticulous. I can't remember when was the first time we decided that somebody would break down, or that if somebody broke down, the others would just leave. It's the sort of the opposite of the unwritten code of blokes, really.
Yeah.
Right? You should stay and help
No
them
man
out.
left behind. It's
But we decided, it's more like survivors will not be picked up. It's that mentality.
Yeah.
And it just made us laugh.
It's
really.
the better joke, for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And it's...
I don't remember a time before that. I don't remember a Top Gear challenge where someone wasn't left behind.
No, I think you're right. It must have started very, very early on.
I mean, it's a good bit. It's definitely the right move for television.
Yeah, it's one of our memes. I think you call it these days. The word hadn't been invented then, I don't think. We've all left each other behind at some point.
Yeah.
And it is quite useful to be able to do basic things yourself. I mean, I could do, obviously, changing wheels and things like that. I could sort out points ignition.
You come off as very handy. You come off
I'm
as the most
reasonably-
handy of the three hosts.
Well, the competition's not severe, is it? I mean,
No.
Hammond can do that sort of stuff a bit. Clarkson is completely hopeless at anything practical.
Yeah.
But
Which is his charm, by the way.
yes. In my spare time, I make stuff and mend stuff and fuck about with tools and things. I like that sort of stuff. So I've got some idea. We've never had... Now, hang on, I've got to think very carefully about this.
There's been a couple, like, pretty cash... I remember Hammond had a Subaru that, like, he crashed quite badly and, like, the whole corner of the car was ripped off.
Yeah, we had broken suspension arms on Hammond's Subaru, but we did manage to weld those back together. I'm trying to think when a car didn't make it to the end. There must have been... Oh, Hammond's old Land Cruiser didn't make it to the end.
Shocker.
Yeah, because the prop shaft and everything fell out. So we finished that one on foot, but only the last few miles. There was something else that didn't make it. My Evo just got to the end.
There's some incredibly nerdy audience member screaming at the
they're
car
all
right now.
Like,
how does he not know? I've seen every episode 75 times.
No, that's the thing. The viewers end up knowing it better than we do.
Yeah.
Because it's just a sort of minestrone of car-based experiences.
And a lot of it, I mean, particularly the challenges that aren't, the stuff that's not new car reviews, it ages pretty well, and you can rewatch it, and it's a lot of fun, the specials and stuff. I've rewatched a few of the specials, like, a bunch of times.
Well, I think we realised that eventually when we made that decision to switch to just doing the specials. So in the early days when we were on Top Gear, we did basically a magazine format show, and we did car reviews and things, and then we came up with a few things that were triple headers. And then we did the first sort of inadvertent special, which was in the southern states, and then we did the original.
That one went well.
No, it didn't. Then we did Botswana, which was the first one that was really planned as a special, and we used to mix them up. We had regular magazine type shows with a special thrown in every season. And then when we were into doing the Grand Tour, we decided, you know what? Everybody likes the specials. As you say, they're timeless because we tend to do them in old knackers or obscure cars. And they're the best loved bits, and we do them best, and it's the bit we actually like.
You know when that matters more? When it's on-demand streaming.
Yeah, I think you're right.
The stuff that, I talk about this all the time, going from old school cable, even cable with the guide, to on demand. When, like, I used to watch Seinfeld or Top Gear or whatever, it was, well, the new episode is on and I'm going to put it on. And I trust them to deliver me, but with podcasting or with YouTube or whatever, even if I love the creator, I can see what's inside that episode and I'm going to like or not watch.
Yeah.
And the car reviews, some of them are very fun, and I mean, some of the car reviews are incredibly creatively done. Some of the best car reviews of all time, but they don't make sense, 10 years later necessarily.
No, exactly.
Although I will say one of the best car reviews, I mentioned it for 2 seconds earlier, that I've ever seen was actually your Honda Clarity review. It turns out that history does not agree with you.
No,
but it was a very good film about an otherwise not that interesting car.
Yes, I enjoyed doing that one, and thank you. But I think what you're saying in a polite way is I was wrong. Because I was.
You were, but not intentionally.
No, I wasn't intentionally wrong, and I may yet be not wrong, but at the moment I'm wrong. I've had 2 hydrogen cars back in the UK, and I've had to give up on them. I love them, but I've had to give up on them because the infrastructure's fallen apart.
Right.
So.
Yeah,
I mean, you weren't
terrible.
That's where
too.
you weren't wrong. You weren't wrong about the powertrain and how it works and all those things, but the infrastructure failed to meet you in the middle.
Yes, and the infrastructure is obviously complicated. It's massively expensive, and in places where it's been successfly implemented, government has been behind it, or public money's been behind it. So it's basically here, Japan and Germany.
Yeah.
In Britain, because we're broke, we haven't put the money in and the number of stations has gone down. And there's now only one vaguely close to where I live, which makes the car pointless.
I got stuck on a road trip in a hydrogen car because the hydrogen station I went to had run out of hydrogen, unbeknownst to us. And after many customer service calls, they were like, I'm sorry, you have to wait for the truck tomorrow at noon. And so that's what happened.
So you have to wait. All right, that's not quite as bad as having to throw your car in the river.
No, but it's like that's like driving in the 20s. I mean, that's
it is.
my neighbor here in L.A. is the hydrogen lobbyist for the state.
Ooh, wow, good luck to him.
I met him because he has 5 Toyota Mirais parked in front of his house, and I was like, well, there's something to this. So
Are they all waiting for a fill-up?
yeah, pretty much.
He towed them back from the hotel I was at.
No, but some of the car reviews, particularly of cars that were, Jeremy's Ford Fiesta review is one of the greatest car reviews, of all time. There's been some did you find, particularly when going from Top Gear to the Grand Tour, and I suspected this, that the restrictions put on you by the BBC pushed creativity in ways that Amazon, who said maybe kind of do whatever makes you happy, did not do?
That's an excellent question, because I'm a firm believer, not just in making TV, in the arts. Stravinsky said it, Picasso said it. Restrictions are a spur to creativity. Now, the honest truth is people imagine that when we were at the BBC, we were told all the time what we couldn't do, and they were very strict with us. They weren't. They gave us a very free hand. They kept an eye on us to make sure we stayed within the law and that sort of thing. But there was something about when you're working for the BBC, because it's a national broadcaster, it's a little bit like being at school and you're being a bit naughty.
You're right.
Because it's sort of, it's not that it's not allowed, but it's a bit frowned upon by the teachers. And
there's the bits about messing with the newscasters and stuff like that are an excellent sort of foil.
Yes, exactly. Now you don't get that with, say, with a streaming service like Amazon, because they're not an institution in the way the BBC are.
Right.
But Amazon were also very good because they didn't interfere. They had the good sense to let us get on with doing what we already knew we could do. So
fucking with Bezos would have been fun. I wish there was
I think they used to get a bit sensitive about that, because I used to put the odd joke in about Jeff Bezos, and they'd say, no, you can't really say that because he doesn't like it. And I thought, oh, come on.
The billionaire is fragile?
Yeah.
Oh.
We made jokes about Amazon's knife-edge finances tipping over into the red and all that.
Well, someone's got to pay for the yacht. The yachts, there's a support yacht for the toys.
Is there a support yacht as well? Oh, I didn't know that.
Listen, they're all support. They've always got a support yacht. You have to put the hookers and the jet skis somewhere.
I see. Yes, okay. So that's staff accommodation, is it? Yes. Got it. Can we say this?
Yes,
okay.
Yes, okay. We definitely can.
During a car review filming, would you go rewrite the script throughout the day with some of the writers? How involved were you?
No, we used to do most of the writing ourselves, and to be honest, a lot of it was made up as we went along. The way I've done it, certainly in the things I've done by myself.
That's quite impressive.
I always did it. So on my own shows, like Man Lab and Cars of the People and things, I ended up doing all the scripts as really a series of bullet points to remind me of the things I'd thought of that I wanted to say. But then I'd just try and, it's not quite ad lib because I knew what I was trying to say, but I wanted it to just come out like we're talking now, as a conversation, like being in a pub, in a bar, or meeting at the shops. Because I find over-scripted TV now sounds incredibly old-fashioned.
Yeah.
And people, because most of us aren't actors, we're definitely not us three, we can't deliver a word-perfect script in a convincing way. We sound like somebody reading an auto cue, or who's memorized a poem at school. Mm-hmm. So it's better to just. This is the only bit of advice I've ever given to any young people who come up to me saying, how do I do TV presenting? And it's usually because they want to do something on YouTube. But I say, just you're talking to the person behind the camera as if they're your mate down the pub. That's the way to do it. Just talk normally. That's what people
really
expect.
Hard for some people to do.
Oh, God, some people really struggle with it, yes.
I tell that to a lot of people, and they say, how do I do this? And I go, point a camera at yourself for 20 minutes and talk while driving and see if it's watchable. Not even good. Just start with watchable.
Yeah.
And oftentimes it's not. But
it often isn't, no.
Yeah.
But people are very intimidated by cameras, even if, as you say, it's just your own smartphone.
Yeah. It's so crazy that people their whole personality changes when there's a camera there. It's wild.
You can get used to it quite quickly, and the danger then is that you become a bit cocky about it and think you can just turn a camera on and be brilliant, and you can't actually. There's always a bit of work involved, and some people just have a gift for it. But I've generally sort of worked at it. I've had to work at it, and I look at some of the early stuff I did, and I think, Christ, you look like you've got a broom handle stuck up your arse in that one. It's,
right, but at the time, you probably saw that and went, "I'm good at this. I'm going to keep going."
Almost certainly, yeah. I thought, hey, look at me.
Yeah, my early shit is totally unwatchable by me today.
And it's hide behind the sofa stuff, isn't it?
It's brutal. It's brutal.
I don't like watching it.
It's not good.
But also the fashions have changed in the last 20 years, so that's my
not
excuse.
For you.
Yeah. Yes.
So other than, I mean, we're kind of focusing on Top Gear and Grand Tour today because that's, it was such an important thing for the two of us in our career. But you've also got Cars of the People. You've also got Our Man in Japan and our Man in Italy, and I mean a dozen other shows. Do you just like you know what? I think I'd like to travel around Japan. Let me call Amazon and see if they'll foot the bill for this. Or what drives the seeking of new non-car related shows? Guys, just one more quick break to remind you that our TST merch is available at thesmokingtireshop.com. Get it while supplies last. And my collaboration with Notice Watches, The Canyon, does have a few units remaining at NoticeWatches.com. The beautiful blue colorway is there with the twinkly night sky motif. It's got gilt hands and gilt indices. Comes on an amazing Jubilee bracelet. It's 200 meters water resist. It's a Swiss movement. It's an amazing piece. I've been talking about it for over a year, and you can get it in the night sky colorway now while supplies last. And now let's get back to the podcast.
I suppose that partly comes from a sort of cockiness because you can believe, hey, I can do anything now. But it's, to be honest, in the Amazon contract we had, there was a provision for us to make a solo show each. So I thought, well, I should do that because I've done other stuff by myself. And I have been genuinely intrigued by Japan for a long time. I've been there quite a few times, probably 10 or 12 times in total. So I put it to them and they said, yes, okay, off you go. So we just sort of, again, it wasn't scripted. I remember with Japan, I scripted the opening piece to camera when I'm right in the north on the beach with the old boat, and I scripted the closing piece down by the volcano. Everything else was just made up as we went along. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Wow.
Yeah, it's easier apart from anything else. You didn't have to write anything.
Yeah. Well, and it's it's a very fish out of water thing. So all you need to do is sort of react to what's around you.
Oh, the amount of stimulus is enormous in a place like that. So it's not difficult to get excited about.
Yeah.
Other things like back in the old days when we did things like Man Lab. Well, the opposite of that actually is Cars of the People, which I wrote completely before we even started filming. The whole thing was effectively a very long essay that we then delivered to camera as pieces of camera with pictures.
It's a great show. Did you the two processes are so different though? Did you enjoy one more than the other?
Well, if you've scripted something, it's quite nice to know that you've got a story,
right, and
that now all you have to do is deliver it. But it means the amount of work you have to do in advance is enormous because you're effectively writing a book before you set off to film anything. I don't really know which I prefer. I was very pleased with Cars of the People when I don't really like watching myself on the telly. I find it really cringy, but I did quite like watching that one. Because I
think it's probably because you wrote it and therefore had a sort of an edit ready.
Yes, and it sort of sounded convincing, I thought. It sounded like I knew what I was on about.
Unless I craft a story and then edit it, and I enjoy I hate watching me, but I like watching the edit I've created, which is interesting.
Yes, that's like reading your own very, very carefully crafted wedding speech. Or something.
That's
She's
gonna like this. This is good.
It was, when I was talking about reverse engineering Top Gear, I reverse engineered No Reservations, and later I did an episode of Parts Unknown, Anthony Bourdain. I realized that almost anything of consequence, of depth, that Anthony said to camera was written and recorded as a voiceover. And in the world, in the country he's in, it's almost all listening to people reacting and walking around. He never says anything profound on site. He says it later in a voiceover, and then it's put in.
That's interesting. That's because he's had time to think about it and craft the.
Yeah.
I mean, it is very difficult to speak off the cuff in a very deep and meaningful way. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you watch Top Gear and the Grand Tour, a lot of it is us sort of going, and making noises. And
what I've learned from those shows is that the English have so many ways to say testicles.
Oh, God,
so many ways.
Millions.
Hundreds of ways.
And drunk. We can never exhaust the vocabulary.
I just last night, I'm on the elliptical machine going, James is coming tomorrow. Let me watch some Top Gear. And I watched the St. Petersburg race with the Twizy and the hovercraft.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think you and Jeremy, between the two of you, and Richard, probably said testicles 11 different ways in 40 minutes. It was very impressive.
Right, that's good, because I was thinking about this very subject only 2 days ago. I was watching a piece of video that came out of the UK. There was a bit of a riot, and some bloke was taunting the police while these other blokes were throwing bricks at them. Mm-hmm. But this bloke got hit by his own artillery, effectively friendly fire. So he got hit on the back of the head. Oh. And when he turned around, he got hit right in the bollocks with another brick. But I was watching some of the comments on this video, and somebody referred to them as his jaffers, which was a new one I'd never heard before. He said...
They're still coming up with new words for balls over there. It's crazy.
I feel like we would call it the Mike Pence. You get hit by your own brick, and then you turn around and you get hit again.
Yeah. I mean, respect.
Shocking.
I think that's part of the reason that the English are so good at this job is you have so many ways to say stuff, and we're us simpletons on this side of the ocean are...
Oh, no, I think you lot are pretty good at it as well. I think the strength the British have is that we are very, very good at sarcasm.
Mm-hmm. Amazing.
We are basically very skilled at sarcasm because we are maybe slightly unhappy people. I don't know. There's probably been PhDs done on this.
I saw a fucking clip the other day of you who was talking about Jeremy's skin, and you said you look like you've been dug out of a pyramid.
Yes.
That was one of the fine. I fucking laughed so hard at my phone when I heard that.
He did, though. So He'd been out in the sun.
One of the greatest lines I've ever heard.
What a state. Yes.
Oh, it's so great, man. So, okay, other than... obviously, being a car enthusiast, I know you're a watch collector. I've spotted many of your watches.
A little bit,
Vintage Seikos. You've got an Oris on today. It's a nice piece. What else do you collect?
Bicycles.
Not like Lance Armstrong bicycles. It's got to be like Huffy shit, Schwinn shit.
Not historic competition bicycles. I just have lots of bicycles because I like them and I like taking them to bits, and I build the odd special bicycle. It's just tinkering.
Okay.
I collect that. I collect the box lid artwork from model aeroplanes.
Just the lid?
Yeah, but I've usually got the whole box.
Okay,
but I collect it for the pictures, not for the not
do you
for
have
the model.
What does your display look like of that? Are they?
Oh, it's some shelves with boxes with what I'm not. It's partly a sentimentality thing because I got so excited about that sort of stuff when I was a kid. The artwork on packaging and especially on boxes of things like model aeroplanes and model cars. So I collect that a bit. Kitchen knives. I'm a bit of a sucker for kitchen knives.
Like Damascus steel chef's knives?
And all that, and the Japanese ones and a ceramic one. If you go into a shop that's got nice kitchen knives in, I find it really difficult not to... I don't need any more. I've got...
How many does one need?
You only really need two, to be honest.
A big one and a small one.
Big one and a small one,
That's pretty much it. So and I imagine you have like the full sharpening setup.
Oh, yeah, I love sharpening things.
I
love sharpening woodwork tools, knives, scissors, pen knives. I've got quite a few pen knives as well.
Okay.
A lot of them have been given to me as gifts, but, little multi-tools and little pocket knives and things.
Well, once people find out that you're into something, especially something that's reasonably affordable, that's just the go-to gift forever.
Well, and it seems
absolutely.
Like some of these hobbies... the things are relatively compact, so it's easy to buy many of them. Like if you're really into cars and you have 15 cars and you need a lot of space, but if it's a watch or a knife or even like sharpening, you're like, well, I have 15 stones, but they all fit in this drawer.
That's very true, and the same is true of tools, because for some reason I really like screwdrivers. I can't quite explain this.
Also, you only need two of those.
You need two, maybe three, but I've got... If you see one that's really nice in a shop, it's a bit like an abandoned puppy. You sort of think, well, I better take that screwdriver home, give it a new forever home, and look after it, even though you've got one just like it already. But again, they don't take up much space. One little toolbox can have 150 interesting screwdrivers in it.
I'm getting pulled into the sharpening thing, and my fiance was like, how many different ways do we have to sharpen knives right now? And it was like a question and an accusation. I was like, 2, because one of them's honing, and that's different. She's
It is, exactly right. No, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
People use the word sharpening incorrectly.
Yeah.
Honing is entirely different.
Yeah.
But if you get into things like sharpening the irons of woodworking planes or chisels and things, you get the sharpening tech that's available for that.
I saw a machine, the guy, he had like a pivot point and an angle and screws, and he had to find the right angle to sharpen his chisel, and just that thing looked quite complicated. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's very satisfying when you get it.
A belt-driven, what's that called? Is
the belt is a stropping.
No, not the one
you
like
mean
that.
a lineage belt.
A motorized belt for like axes and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's good for starting off, but to finish off, to get the fine, you go through the various stones and the various oils, and then you finish off with a strop, and you can even finish it off on the back of your hand, and you get that final
back of your hand?
Yeah. Sorry, the palm of your hand, not the back.
That can sharpen your skin?
It can strop it, yeah, same as a piece of leather.
Oh, I never...
You have to be very careful.
Imagine that could go horribly wrong.
But when you get something like that, it's like when you get your kitchen knife properly sharp, and you cut, a carrot or something, and it just goes straight through it with no effort.
Oh, like a Cybertruck trunk.
It's great. Like the Cybertruck door.
I'm driving that in a few days.
Are
I'm
you?
quite excited, yeah.
Have you been around one?
I haven't been really close to one yet. I've looked at a few from I've seen a few today.
Close is where it gets good.
Is it? When you say good, do you mean...
I mean bad. I mean very bad.
Bad, yeah.
Very, very bad. Yeah.
I've heard this. It's disappointing, really, because
Well, they told him that this shape would be very difficult to make, and they weren't wrong.
Yeah.
And it's bad. It's really bad. It's the worst quality I've ever seen from a modern car ever.
Oh, God.
By a lot.
That's pretty damning.
Even if you like how it looks, which is fine if you do. I don't. I think it looks stupid. But if you like how it looks, fine. But just from a assembly heinous. Absolutely heinous.
That's interesting, because I'm on my second tester. I had a Model S, and I've now got the new Highland Model 3. Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty impressed with the way it's put together, actually.
Well, they figure stuff out, 7-8 years down the road, and that's like a pretty normal car by modern car standards. And they figured that out. This one is just like, they did a thing that everyone said was a bad idea, and they were like, fuck you, we're going to do it anyway.
And it is a bad idea.
It's a bad idea. It turns out these people were correct in their assessment.
I'm looking forward to that then.
Yeah.
What does it drive like then?
The steer-by-wire is neat. I don't trust it to work properly, but it is pleasant to use.
It is very difficult to trust things like that.
Yeah.
Once the thought's in your head that it's not actually connected.
Yeah, and there's been multiple documented failures of it also.
Yeah.
But it is pleasant to use. I don't know. I'd like to hear what you think once you try it.
Okay. Well, that's a couple of days away.
If Toyota or Porsche did it, I'd go, yeah, this has probably been sorted. But because it's them, I'm like, I don't trust you to start this.
No.
But it's okay. You're a professional. You've driven all kinds of weird shit. You can handle it. The rest of it drives like a normal electric car.
Yeah. Okay.
It has way more power than brakes. The brakes are horrible. Yeah.
So that's very un-Porsche then, because Porsche always said the cars had to brake better than they accelerated.
Yes,
didn't they?
and they typically do.
Yeah.
Can we? What is in the James May collection these days? Can we talk about that? I know you don't like to brag, but
well, it's not that dramatic. I've got a Fiat Panda.
Standard.
Yes.
That's your everyday car, I imagine.
Well, one of them. Yeah, it's either that or the Tesla Model 3. I don't have the hydrogen car anymore, so I've got the Panda and the Tesla, a beach buggy, an old-style Mini Cooper, a 911 Carrera 2, an Alpine A110, a couple of Land Rovers, the Ferrari, and a VW Polo.
Which Ferrari? Do you still have a 458? Isn't that
458 Speciale.
Oh, yeah, okay, that's a good one. And a VW Polo?
Yes, a 1 litre basic Polo, which is bloody good, actually.
That's pretty much what I would peg for a James May collection.
So there's nothing I forgot. I've got a few motorcycles and things as well, and
Have you ever had or kept any of the Top Gear Challenge cars, or had the desire to?
The beach buggy is the top.
Oh, that's the top. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Right.
Oh no, I've also got a Triumph Stag.
Oh, okay.
which
Those are medium terrible.
Yeah, they're medium terrible. Mine's quite nice, but it needs a bit of bodywork done on it because it got dented. So it's actually with Richard Hammond, who now has his.
He's your body man now?
Well, I sort of thought if I'm going to put this work somewhere, I should put it with my mate. And I gave it to him. It's probably 5 or 6 months ago now, and he still hasn't even looked at it. He's stuck it in a barn.
He should open a body shop in Los Angeles. He'd be right at home.
I'm never going to see it again. Every time I talk to him, I say, have you looked at my Triumph Stag? And he goes, oh, well, not quite yet. I'm going to look at it, tomorrow. And he never does.
You're too close with him. He knows that you'll put up with that.
Yeah.
Yes,
You're not
exactly.
going to not be friends with him.
I need to go around and pin him against the wall.
So is that his hobby? I mean, not to go to him too much, but he likes to do the body work and he'll do it for you? Or he's...
Well, it's not him. It's his business. He's got a business mending cars, which he also has turned into a TV show on Discovery. So I think he sort of struts around being pompous for the most part, and the blokes do the work.
I've seen him on Instagram. Like, does anyone have a windshield for a Mark I Jag?
It's that sort of thing. But I don't know. I think my car has not been prioritised. Let's put it that way, because it's not much of an earner for him. So I'm never going to see it again.
It's not a big TV transformation.
You know how every now and then you get those stories come out. They say, we found this 911 RS or this Lamborghini Urraco in this garage, and it hadn't been touched for 40 years. And it's all there. It's covered in dust and it's a bit mouldy, but it's all there and it's all intact and it's done 30,000 miles. And you always think to yourself, God, how does that happen? How does somebody forget that they've got a Lamborghini Urraco? But actually, with this experience with Hammond and my Stag, I see exactly how it happens. Eventually, I'm just going to say, oh, fuck it.
Did you see the Espada downstairs? In the underground level?
Is there one down there?
It hasn't run in 20 years, covered in dust. A lady inherited it from her father.
Oh.
Yeah.
I like an Espada.
We're
going to have a look at that.
Listen, it's yours.
A friend of mine has one or two. He's had them for Aaron Robinson.
Oh, yeah. A friend of ours has 2 Espadas.
And he said getting transmission parts for his, because he has a transmission problem, he's like, it is a big issue. They don't sell the parts anywhere. You can't get it made. So he's at the phase, or Espada owners, I think, are at the phase where if an Espada comes up for sale, they're like, I could buy that just for the transmission bearing. Like, that's bad.
That is bad.
It makes it challenging to own.
So I know a bloke who's got one. I've never ridden in it, or I don't think I've even seen it close up, but he, as far as I can tell, doesn't have any problems with it. But when he does, when say a switch breaks on the dashboard, I can say to him, oh, I know where there's a whole one of those spare. So with a bit of luck, it'll have a little bit on it that you need.
Yeah. This one downstairs would, not to impugn the lady's father, but it would make a good parts car for somebody. It would probably take $200,000 to make it worth $100,000. You know?
Yeah.
Wait, so we only have one more bottle of Fever Tree because I didn't do math right, but I want to try. Can we try a splash of the original? Do you want to top off?
I better not, because I've got jet lag. And
right.
And anyway, you haven't got that much
I
tonic.
want to try a splash of the original, Zach.
Yeah, I do too.
So this is
the mustard finish on this, though, is really subtle and good.
This shit is good.
It's all right. You
really
can taste the mustard.
Yeah, absolutely.
And can we buy this in America now?
You can.
Okay.
You can buy it on jamesgin.com.
Okay, and you'll ship.
It's not retail yet, but it may be. Now that's the Navy strength version, so it's a bit knockout. But
What is the definition of Navy strength?
Well, the legend has it, and it's actually too good to check and almost impossible to check because everybody involved is long dead. But the idea of Navy strength spirits was that they were of a high enough proof to be inflammable, so that if the barrels that they were stored in were broken during a battle and it mixed with the gunpowder would still work. So
really?
So if you put a match to that, it will go up. The
That's
regular
not
stuff
where
doesn't.
I thought you were going with that story.
Yeah.
Where did
I
you think
thought
was
you were
going
to say that you didn't want it to start a fire if the ship was hit, but you're saying they didn't want it to ruin the gunpowder.
Yeah.
That rules.
That's the story.
Okay.
It could just be that sailors
Fuck,
are pissed
that's
at
good too, man. It turns
Gin is
out
delicious,
you
man.
are good at making gin.
Well, to be honest, I don't make it. I sort of come up with the ideas a bit. But you've got a professional craft distiller who then locks himself away in a cold barn and works out how to actually make it. And when he's got it right, we launch it and we make the initial batch with him, but he can only make a small run, 1,000 litres or something. So then we have to give it to another distiller, still a small one. But our man, Hugh, goes and keeps an eye on them to make sure they're not cutting any corners. Because there are many variables in a gin. If you look at all the ingredients, you can change the proportions and that changes the flavour. So you've got to, eventually he works out what the right proportions are, but you've got to stick to that. If a distiller then, skimps a bit on, say, licorice root or something, it changes the flavour, and it's wrong.
There is a gin, probably more than any other spirit I've tried, maybe tequila, where the good stuff and the bad stuff is a whole other world of drink. Vodka, there's good vodka and bad vodka, but like bad gin is floor cleaner, and good gin is so good.
These are all really distinct, which I like. Because I like gin. I drink it on the rocks sometimes and stuff. Like, I'm a fan, but I like that these taste very, very different.
Yeah.
It doesn't just taste like everything that's on the shelf.
Good, thank you.
Nice.
I mean, we have tried to do... We've tried to do, have a slightly left-footed take on gin, but without being... There are some stupid gins that taste of, Terry's chocolate orange or something like that, and they're novelty gins. They're novelty gins, they're sort of for Christmas.
This tastes like it belongs in the universe of gin, but it's from like a different part of the universe I haven't been to.
So that's a nice way of putting it. I like that. Yes, it's extraterrestrial.
I wrote that earlier, and then,
he was going to do it in VO when we were done. But and now you get to drink for work.
Cars for work, drinking for work. The dream is real.
I've ended up doing a lot of gin tasting. Bear in mind, this started off as a sort of not a joke, but as a bit of a laugh. We just thought
was this a COVID project?
It was just after COVID, so we thought, well, we haven't got any TV work to make at the moment. Let's make a gin. I don't know what made us think of making a gin and not make a piece of furniture or something. So we made one, and we just thought, well. You can't make 2 bottles, so our distiller mate Hugh said, well, if you give us a bit of money, we can make 1,000 bottles, and eventually I will sell them at drinks fairs and so on, and you will eventually get your money back. But we sold out in 2 days.
Oh, that's awesome!
So we thought we better make some more, and now it's in danger of turning into a proper business that we have to take seriously.
What a shame!
Yeah, it is. I'm not very good at business. That's the thing.
I'm shocked. I'm not either. Opening this, going from making YouTube videos to a 7-day-a-week brick and mortar business. That's hard.
Yeah, it is.
I have to do like spreadsheets and shit.
Yeah, exactly. Spreadsheets and shit. Now because we've got a small team doing this. There's another man called Gus who's out there somewhere outside of your studio.
Oh, that's Bizarro you?
Yes.
I said when you got out of the car, I was like, he's brought a second one.
No, he's the business brains, and he does the spreadsheets and the charts and all that sort of stuff, and really understands how it works. I tend to write the words for the website and the back of the bottle.
Is your business more or less haphazard than Jeremy's business?
Well, it's not quite as complicated as Jeremy's, I suppose, because Jeremy is able to make things complicated because he's quite dramatic. But I suspect if it were left just to me, it would be at least as haphazard. I think we would both acknowledge that we're not instinctive business people.
Yeah.
But because I've got the right sort of help, this is running very smoothly. It's still very small. It's a craft product. It's artisanal and all those other bollocksy things that people say. But it works, and it could. I don't think it's likely to explode suddenly, but it could become big enough for us to have to take it seriously rather than treating it as a bit of fun, and then. That's when you want to move me away from it because I jinx business. Generally.
But that's, look, starts with a delicious product, which it happens to be.
Well, if nothing else happens, it pays for itself. It washes its own face, as I think they say in the world of business.
You have a lifetime
commerce.
supply of drink.
I have a load of gin, yes.
What's the worst thing that happens? I have a shit ton of gin.
More than I'm ever going to drink.
Have you tried the Hawkstone beer? Is it good?
Yeah, it's all right. It's a lager, though, and I'm more of a bitter drinker. I'm more of a dark beer man, but it's not bad.
All right.
Obviously, I'm not going to say it's brilliant, because that would be against the terms of our contract. I don't think Jeremy's ever tried my gin. He said,
really?
No. I don't. Well, if he has, he's not mentioned it.
That's on brand.
Because I own a pub and he's got a farm shop, obviously, and he's always saying to me, you should sell my beer in your pub. And I was thinking, well, you could sell my gin in your shop, but goes both ways.
Yeah.
So,
do you like the pub business?
Well, again, I don't run it. I just half own it with another bloke, with a mate. We've got professional manager in and very nice staff, and it's another thing that washes its face.
Yeah.
Doesn't make, pubs in Britain don't make any money, notoriously. I expect bars here don't, on the whole. Do they?
Probably not. No. It's funny that I happened to pull up that St. Petersburg Top Gear special last night because you guys have said something about like the best pub would be one that like nobody comes in.
Yes.
So we want to own a pub just so that nobody else can come in the pub.
Well, me and Jeremy used to talk about that. Yes, we would open a pub that was exactly the pub that we would like to be in, on condition that no one else can be in it. Yeah. So he'd do the bar and I'd do the cooking.
Be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, exactly. But yes, so it's owning a pub is nice. I mean, it means it can sell my gin. Part of the thinking behind the original gin was that it would be one to have in my pub, so we'd have a bespoke local gin.
Yeah. Vertical integration.
Vertical integration. Thank you very much. Yes, good. Good use of. Good use of.
Welcome to California, where that's all anybody fucking talks about.
I'll take that off my business bullshit card for this morning. Yes, but this is probably a very British thing, but the idea, everybody believes it would be wonderful to own a pub, and everybody probably believes they could do it. It's actually extremely hard.
100%.
It's very hard work. It's antisocial. It's unhealthy. You end up being an alcoholic if you're not careful.
Yeah. Restaurants too.
Yeah,
Same
and
shit.
it is. I mean, it is really. It's a pub restaurant,
Yeah.
but the feeling of owning a pub is really nice. If you sort of think to yourself, yes, but I do actually half own a pub, and it is working, and people do like it, and people are going there for lunch and going there in the evening for a beer to talk horse shit about farming or cars or whatever people talk about. It's nice to think that you've helped keep that going.
Yeah.
And you want a seat that's only for you. And you want
The whole thing's for me. Yeah.
you don't want to have a tab at the end. You just want to go pour yourself out of the till.
Yeah, it's fabulous.
I understand. Like I was a waiter for 10 years. I was a valet before that. So I was in the restaurant world. And I often have the daydream, like if I was rich, I'd definitely want to own a restaurant. And then I go, but I remember how stressful it was. Like it was nothing but anxiety. Yeah. Why would I do that again for fun?
No, you wouldn't. It's an absolute killer. Own one, yes. Because then you just get a nice warm feeling that you've done a service to the community.
Right,
yeah.
You can almost feel like you've done it for charitable reasons. I mean, the real reason I got involved in the pub is that I live in London, but we've got a little cottage out in the sticks near where the pub is, and it was the only pub within walking distance of that house, and it was threatened with closure. And I thought, if that pub goes, life has no meaning. Yeah. And you end up being one of those people who has it's not a remote house, but it's only in a little village.
Sure.
And you'd end up sitting there with your missus drinking gin or vodka or whatever, and then you'd think, no, that's really bad.
Yeah.
Much better to buy half the pub, and it's actually just a very expensive round because it doesn't
is.
make any money.
That is like that's like a bit of charity. I mean, you keep
that's what I like to tell myself.
Yeah.
It's actually utter selfishness. In reality, I was just doing it for my own good, so there was a pub to go to.
No one will ever know that.
No, they needn't know that.
It's like an addition on your house. It's like a bar for your house. You just have
that's
to walk
exactly
to
what
it.
it is. It's down the bottom of a very long garden.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good thinking. I like that.
There you go.
That's awesome. I think one day, a neighborhood pub.
Honestly,
There's
if you can do it,
romance
it's
to it.
fine, but you mustn't make... There's two mistakes that people make. One is believing that with no prior experience they can run a pub, because it's actually a very difficult job. The other mistake that's made, this happens a lot in Britain, is there's a village or there's a local pub in a town which is closing, and it's usually because it doesn't make enough money, because they never do. And all the locals club together and think they will sort of set up a committee and they will run the pub together. But it doesn't work. It needs someone in charge.
Right.
It needs someone who says, right, this is how we do it.
Pub can't be democracy.
No, it's got to be like the army, to be honest.
Or like Formula One.
Yeah.
Bernie's, it's not fucking democracy.
No, it's not a democracy. So buy a pub, by all means, and enjoy the sensation of realising what is, let's be honest, a boyhood ambition for many of us, owning a pub or a bar of some sort.
Yeah. I love a fucking British pub,
but
man.
Don't go near trying to run it. Just go there and use it.
Have you heard of Caffeine and Machine in the UK? My buddy Phil. I mean, that is the greatest place. I mean, I've only been to the original one. I haven't been to his two new ones. But you go there and you go, I want this. I want to be. And then I go, Phil, how many days do you work? 7. What hours do you work? Open to close. And I go,
yeah,
maybe.
No, it's
maybe
grueling.
not.
It's really grueling. All of the hospitality business is really pretty thankless, to be honest. You have to be very tough to deal with it.
Yeah,
and it does produce more than its fair share of alcoholics.
Yeah, that too.
Also true.
Do you like motorsport? Watching, spectating?
Not very much these days, to be honest. I used to when I was younger, and then I got sort of slightly bored with it. I was very into Formula One back in the early 90s, and I was into the MotoGP bike racing for a bit. And then I don't know what happened, really. I just fell out of love with it. And then when I've watched the odd bit of Formula One recently, it seems so preposterous and so much like watching a business in operation rather than a sport.
Yeah.
It seems like very little happens.
I like watching Drive to Survive more than I like watching the actual races.
Yeah, probably.
Like you said, reality but not real, or
yeah,
real but not reality.
True but not real.
Yeah.
I remember. I mean, back in the Senna Prost era, when I was also working on a car magazine that reported on motorsport. And I was on the subs desk, so I had to be on top of it. I used to find all that quite exciting. I used to watch it, and then maybe it's because it became part of work, it spoiled it for me. I don't know.
I was going to ask, because it seems like a lot of your hobbies and interests have kind of become your job. I mean, there's like cars and traveling and tinkering and gin and stuff. Like, do you feel like you've won a lottery of sorts, or do you feel like, oh no, like Jay Leno I think has said this, if your hobby becomes your job, it's no longer your hobby?
That's very true.
Do you feel like that?
I think it can spoil things. The weird thing about the cars is, I mean, I really got into it because I didn't really know what I wanted to do when I was a college grad and so on, and I wandered around loads of sort of pointless and unsuitable jobs. Then I fell into doing some editing on a magazine, and from there I got a job on a car magazine. Still not writing, I was sub-editing. I was writing headlines and putting the whole thing together, and I did the production editor's job because I liked cars, but I also liked aeroplanes and I liked trains and bikes and boats and any of that sort of mechanical stuff. So I then started writing about cars, and I got more heavily into it, and it was all it was new. It was I was only in my early 30s, and I went to all these interesting places and I drove all these amazing cars. But then later on, the job I ended up with, which was Top Gear and then the Grand Tour, it gradually became less and less about the car. Well, less and less about motoring journalism and more about cars as a way of exploring being human, if you like. Mm-hmm. So our program turned into a sort of combination of travelogue, sitcom, pantomime, circus, absurdity. And the cars actually started to take a bit of a backseat. So in a strange way, I've actually lost some touch with the subject. I'm not as current on what's happening in the world of cars as I was, say, 15 years ago.
Is that a relief, or is that do you feel like you're missing out a little bit?
I sometimes, like when I go into your garage and I see all those fascinating cars, it prickles a bit, and I think, oh yes, I remember why I found all this sort of thing so exciting, because cars are just exciting things to look at and smell, and it's great. But I do find these days that I tend to be interested in my own cars. That's enough.
Well, we drive press cars all the time, and it becomes hard to be interested in your own cars when you're always driving the newest thing.
Yes.
It almost, I mean, I'm not complaining by any means, but it almost feels like work to deal with your own cars versus the press cars.
Yes, I can see that. And when I was driving a lot of press cars and doing a lot of car launches, which was before I did the telly and in the first few years of the TV, I only had one fairly mediocre car of my own. And driving, being able to drive a 911 or a Ferrari or a Jag or something was quite exciting. But then I was quite lucky. I got to the position where I could have a few of these things myself. And then I became quite obsessive about my own cars. I'm very, very interested in my cars, and I like driving them. And I just sort of want everybody else to go away.
Yeah.
Did that refine your palate? Because it sounds like your car collection, it's not a bunch of really expensive things, because you've driven everything under the sun. So did it actually allow you to kind of go out, explore the world, so to speak, and go, actually, I just want to own these things and live here? And
yeah, I think so. And I also think that I bought some cars intending to sell another one, on a one-in, one-out thing, but then I just never did. Mm-hmm. That's that can also be true of things like watches.
Sure. Watches are
really dangerous.
That's a dangerous one, man. That takes no space to keep a watch.
But sometimes I think I'd like to, because I do have too many cars and I don't use them that much. I'll never do this because, to be honest, it's too much effort. But I'd almost like them to all go away. I'll have the money, all the cars go away. Then I'll start with my empty 5-bay garage and think, right, what shall I put in it?
Clean slate, yeah.
But I'd probably only buy 2 cars then at the most. I'd probably have 2 cars, 2 motorcycles, and then say, okay, stop.
Beyond that, it does get hard to use them.
Well, it creates admin.
Yeah.
You've got paperwork and insurance and MOTs and all this, and I have to keep a chart on my phone of what I'm allowed to drive at the moment because this or that hasn't expired. This or that one needs a service, and God.
Yeah.
Do you know what the 2 cars would be if you shook the Etch-a-Sketch and then had an empty garage?
No.
That's a fine answer too.
I don't know. I'd have. I mean, I like having the Tesla as a car.
Yeah.
I find it incredibly convenient. It's polite, doesn't make any noise. I do spend some of my time in the country where it's very quiet. Mm-hmm. So I probably would have that or something like it. And then I would just... The other car would be... I mean, I tend to think of cars as a hobby thing. I get a great deal of pleasure out of this Mini Cooper that I've bought. There's enough little bits of fiddling need doing with it, which I enjoy.
What year is it?
Oh, it's actually one of the prototypes of the reborn Mini Cooper. So it's 1989. So it's the old shaped car, but it's not a 60s one.
But it has like fuel injection and stuff, right?
No, this has still got twin carbs.
Oh, it does.
They originally had one carb. It was converted to twin carbs. It's only done 1,300 miles since 1989.
Total?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's a showroom car. So I bought it off a collector last year. And
that's pretty cool. I bet that's a good time.
And of those 1,300 miles, I've done 300 of them.
All right.
So, and it's, I can do a little bit of tinkering with it, but it's all in lovely condition. And it's terrible to drive because it's a Mini, but it's also great fun because it's simple and it's very small.
Yeah.
And I like really small cars.
Yeah.
So in some ways, I could see me having a Tesla in the Mini or the Tesla in the beach buggy.
That would be fun. I get it. That would be a lot of fun.
Because the Ferrari, to be honest, I mean, it's a wonderful thing, and I think of it more as an artwork. I do collect a bit of art, and I sort of include the Ferrari in that rather than in the cars, because I really don't use it very often. I use it, a handful of times a year, and then it sits in its warm garage being polished and put on a trickle charger. And
I like that you're the same as all Ferrari owners in that regard.
I know, we're all absolute wankers, really, aren't we? It's terrible.
Is that the only Ferrari you've owned? Was that the one that grabbed you?
No, I've had 4.
You had a 430 at one point.
I had a 430, a 458, a Standard Italia. I've had a 308 GTB, and I've had this Speciale from new in 2015. And every now and then I skirt around other sort of like F360s and things that I quite fancy. And I've come quite close to buying one or two, and then I've just backed off, and I've actually managed to say no.
Well, now that they have
don't use the one you've got.
Right. But now they have affordable manual conversion kits for the 360s.
Yeah.
The buying a cheaper F1 car and swapping it is actually a pretty legitimate value proposition.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, I have seen some nice ones in lovely colour schemes and things, and
I
drove them when they were
too.
new, and they're pretty straightforward cars.
Yeah, they're nice.
And they're nice, and they're not too catastrophic to run. Once you get into the V12 stuff, it can get a bit
engine, or if you're doing engine out.
Engine out stuff.
Was the 360 like most of the sound of the 355, but less maintenance and better ergonomics?
It's built better.
It's just built much better.
It's built a lot better. It feels much more like a newer car. 355s they feel like old cars.
Yeah, they do.
And they sound amazing.
I think I'm right. The 355 is still effectively on a space frame, isn't it? And the 360 was the first aluminium monocoque.
Yeah.
And you can feel the difference. It feels like a sort of stiffer, more together.
Especially with a Spider.
Thing. Yeah.
355 Spiders are a little floppy.
God, they're like a piece of damp cardboard.
Yeah. But they sound fucking awesome.
Yeah, and they're also nice and small as well.
Yes,
The older
small.
Ferraris are narrow. And so the 458 is, to be honest, too wide.
For British roads.
Yeah.
Here in America, with our
it's
standard size ADA roads.
I know. Well, here it's like a compact.
Here a
458's
a small car. Yeah.
But it feels big around the country lanes of South Wiltshire in England.
That's why the Mini is so money. That thing is great.
And it's why the Alpine is great, because the Alpine is a good, nearly 8 inches narrower than the Ferrari, which is all in the middle of the road. Oh, you must.
I've never heard about. Everyone just says they're the best.
It's amazing. I mean, it's 1.8 litre engine, it's not even 250 horsepower, but it only weighs just over a ton, and it's just really
We had David Twigg on the podcast, who was their product manager for that car, and we've had people who've owned them, and it seems like everyone's driven them but us. But
like Dan Prosser, who I know you've been on Intercooler show, like he's owned one for a couple of years, and just everyone sings.
I've
their
never
praises.
met anybody who doesn't love it.
Yeah,
and it has the feeling of driving it. It's like a mixture between an older 911. It has that slightly pattery light front end feel, so it's a mixture between that sort of reduced McLaren Ferrari, and but it's also got a little bit of things like the MG TF, or possibly even the Fiat X19, but it works much better than that, obviously.
So.
And it's just a marvellous car. It's really, really cleverly thought out.
The last time we were in the UK, we were sort of on Lotus's dime, so I didn't want to side trip to drive an Alpine. I didn't. In fact, the Alpine people, we were at Goodwood Festival of Speed, and the Alpine guys were like, "Hey, come here. Do you want to have a go?" And I was like, "Dude, I can't. I'm sorry. I really want to."
Oh, it's such a shame. You must.
They would be annoyed.
They're still not sold here, are they?
No,
because they can't.
It's really a shame. I'm not sure what about it precludes it from being sold here, but
I think it's probably because it's basically part of Renault. It's probably the nervousness of the manufacturer as much as a legislative.
I mean, there
thing.
must be a way to sell it as a Nissan. Like it's been done before.
Yeah, you'd think so, wouldn't you?
You would, but sports cars sports cars in America, like lightweight, like small. It's a very small market, and it's tough to justify homologation costs. I mean, look how long did it take Lotus to get an Emira here? Like 3 years.
Yeah,
crazy.
Well, but how difficult is it to do one as a personal import if you got one from France? Say?
You can't. So they're not rare enough that you can do show and display like you can with like a Gordon Murray T50 or something. If they're rare enough, you can do a show and display. Right. But other than that, we have that 25-year law for mass-produced cars. So you could bring one over for like a year on a carnet, like when you guys are shipping cars all over the world for Top Gear, but then it has to go back after a year.
So if you bought one now, you'd have to leave it in your garage for 20 years before you could drive it.
This would be like the French R34 GTR.
Yeah, you have to do some real shady shit.
Oh, that's a bit painful, isn't it?
Yeah, it's...
well, you'll just sort of come to England and drive one.
Yeah. That's probably the move, is just to come drive to drive that one.
You'd like it, though. I mean, I'm looking at the sort of stuff you like. I think you'd at first you'd think, what the hell? It's got 4 cylinders. And
no, I have a Boxer Spider and an Acura NSX. I know exactly what I like in cars.
But it will make those feel massive.
Really?
Yeah. It's a properly little pint-sized car. It's tremendous.
That's good.
It's really, really good.
That's good. Should we have our Patreon. They're allowed to ask questions, and we have so many, as you can imagine. But
are they difficult?
Huh?
Are they difficult?
No, they're not difficult. But we're not gonna. But we've scaled down to a few, and you have 15 minutes before you have to get out of here. So we've selected some of the best ones.
Okay. I'm not going to look at the screen. I'm going to be surprised.
Okay. Let's see. And some people have very funny usernames. Sloppy Toppy 5000 for interest.
Oh, I know him. Yeah.
How did it feel to outcook Gordon Ramsay on the F word?
Oh God, that's a long time ago.
What a brag, though.
Yeah, it was. He couldn't believe it. He was quite cross. I've seen him quite a few times since, and I've talked to him about it, and we've had a good laugh.
Rematch.
The thing is, I was pissed. I was pissed when I did it because they give you plenty of time to prepare your ingredients, and I took a couple of bottles of wine, and he wasn't very interested, and I just necked them. So I was a bit smashed up, and then I made the pie the way I always had, and the judges were a group of women out for a day in a restaurant, and they just preferred mine. But it was a fantastic moment when his friend, I can't remember his name, the French guy he used to work with, and he said the score is 3-2, and Ramsey said, what? 2 people liked that shit, and you went, not to gems. And I was just punching the air, thinking this is just too great.
That is, I'd put that on a fucking T-shirt. I'd beat Gordon Ramsay in the kitchen. That's the T-shirt.
But the fact that Gordon was like, 2 people like his things, like, no. Not only did you just brag incorrectly, you also lost. Yeah, that's amazing.
That rules. He's got a car collection, though, George.
Yeah, he has. He's a very nice bloke, actually.
Yes.
I've done a few other things with him, and he's a good lad.
I ran into him hiking in Malibu, of all places, and he had like 6 kids with him or something, and he was very, very, very friendly. But that's a brag. Beating Gordon Ramsay in the kitchen is pretty awesome. Let's see. Liang Ku says, if you could get one American car, it says America only car, but American car added to your UK car collection, just for you, what car would it be?
Oh, right. So a domestic American, so I can't include the Tesla, obviously.
No, because that already is there.
That's already there, and that's...
Although you could, I'd laugh, but you could say Cybertruck, but I would laugh.
I don't think I could have a Cybertruck. I mean, I'm interested in it, but it just wouldn't fit with my life or my garage or the roads that I live on, or it just wouldn't fit. So I might go for something... I might go for some sort of historic American iron. I always like the shape of the Chevrolet Chevelle.
Yeah,
we have that one downstairs. Did you see that one?
That's
that
a very
black one?
pretty. Oh yes, actually, I did see it. I didn't look at it properly.
Yeah, we've got a good
That's
one.
That's a very
downstairs.
pretty car. Presumably, they're pretty terrible to drive. In fact, I did drive
they're
one
terrible.
once years ago.
They're all junk.
It's just all old stuff, isn't it? But it looked nice.
Yeah, they do. That's the appeal.
Yeah, I'll have that.
They sound good. That's
There you go.
They sound good and they look good. That's it. They drive. They all drive like garbage. But there are infinite number of ways to make them much, much better. They just cost a fortune.
Yes, I know.
Unshitboxing a car is very
No,
expensive.
but the move now is you buy someone's pro touring project that they spent $200,000 on, and now you scoop it for
absolutely.
$80.
That's like buying boats, isn't
Right.
it? Unfinished boats.
Right.
Yeah, but yes, unfucking American iron and old British sports cars is a bit like trying to restore old British cottages. You just keep going and it's still bad. You know?
They look great on Instagram, though, don't they?
Oh, God, yeah.
We didn't talk about this, but Matt Rantle brings up a good point. Given the inevitable trend towards electrification, if you were tasked with a classic Top Gear Grand Tour challenge to take an electric car and modify it for an epic road trip, what car would you choose, and what would you do to make it handle the journey, or at least make it entertainingly disastrous?
Now, interestingly, we did talk about this, and we nearly did it once, the idea of sort of resto-modding a classic car, but with an electric, essentially, Tesla or Volvo powertrain. And we didn't get very far with it because it was colossally expensive to do. And we couldn't really claim that we'd done it ourselves in our garages because it was just too complicated. But we looked at, what did we look at doing? I think I was at one point going to do a Jag. I was going to do an XJ Jag. So I was also thinking in terms of what would be comfortable, what will accommodate a massive battery.
Right.
Because most of our trips tend to be sort of 800 to 1,200 miles. And there aren't always that many charging opportunities. Yeah. So I think you'd have to, what you really want is a combination of lightness, but with space for battery.
Jag XJ is not bad.
With Jag XJ, I think is not a
bad.
better, or an original Lexus LS 400, I think, but they are quite weighty. And then I thought, well, what if you did? It's like looking at the Lotus. What's the electric Lotus, which is
Electre.
Yes, and that's effectively got the battery in the middle where the engine would be if it were an IC car. And then I started thinking, well, if you went smaller, so you went to something like a Miata or even a Fiat X19, could you get enough battery in that? And is the payoff in smaller size and weight? I don't know. See, the electric cars become quite complicated. I mean, it's only like thinking how big is your fuel tank, but you've also got to think where it goes. So we did think about that for a while, and I never quite came up with the answer. To be honest,
have you tried any of the electric resto-modded classic cars? They don't really interest me so much.
I've tried a 911, which felt really weird as an electric car, an MGB, a Fiat Cinquecento, but the original, 50s Cinquecento, which worked quite well.
That one was probably kind of neat, actually. Right?
That was quite neat, and it was very quick, especially compared with an original.
Yeah, I bet.
And had an absolutely diabolical range, but it didn't really matter, because it was a toy.
There's in America now. There's any number of companies that are doing incredibly expensive electric conversions to classic cars.
It always seems to be expensive. I saw a Testarossa the other day that had been on YouTube. I mean, that had been done with an electric power pack.
Who buys a fucking Testarossa to not hear anything? That's crazy.
Well, that was sort of my thought, because I'm not, when people do it with things like, I don't know, MGBs, say, there were a lot of MGBs, but there were a lot of basic 911s built, and I don't get as worked up as some people about, oh, you're destroying the heritage.
No, I don't care about that. It's just the engine is integral to the 911 experience,
yes.
Whereas there's a lot of cars where the car would be great despite its engine.
Yes, and actually maybe improved by not having its original engine.
Yeah, Jeep Wagoneer or a 59 Eldorado,
bus, old VW
Volkswagen
buses.
Microbus, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Bill Leedy says, is there an adventure or challenge you really wanted to happen that didn't?
Ooh, I'm sure there is. There was one across Russia that couldn't happen because a slightly inconvenient war broke out. And we never really went to that.
Can't just call Putin and be like, listen, we have a plan
So
here.
do you mind putting that off for just another month whilst we come and drive around like idiots? Yeah. We never went to, we've been to most parts of the world, but we never went to that sort of, what would you, the sort of the whole bit between Southeast Asia and Australia. So, you know, that drawn
like
out.
Philippines?
Yeah, the Philippines, basically. We never went anywhere around there.
Good car culture in the Philippines.
Yeah, there's lots of it'd be a great place to go. There was no sort of political or moral reason for not going there. It just never happened. So
islands, the fact
that it's a lot of
There's
islands.
not as many bridges as you might need.
We've never let
all
that.
Islands, James.
Yeah, we've never let that stop.
That's
us,
actually
though.
true. You've done a lot of river crossings.
Yeah, we've done loads of river crossings and even small sea crossings. So, yeah, I'm disappointed. That's a part of the world I've never been to. Not on holiday, not with work, nothing. It's I know nothing about it. So, yeah, that's where I would go. I think that's the last place left.
Which reminds me, what are when you're converting cars into watercraft?
It doesn't work.
No, it very rarely works. Correct. But are there any safeguards there? Because the three of you are pretty valuable, and they can't have you just like dying.
I don't think they cared about us that much, if I'm honest. But most of the time where we've done amphibious things, they've been fairly escapable. They've usually been open cars or with lots of big openings in them.
Slow moving river or stuff like that. Yeah.
So I don't think I've ever felt a serious risk doing one of those car things, but I've always known in my heart that they're not going to work because amphibious cars. It's an age-old idea, and it's a very appealing idea, especially if you live in a big city like. So if you're in London or say Chicago, with a very obvious river running right through the middle, and you always look at it and you think that river's not used enough. The River Thames in London, it's not used enough, and you think if I could just drive in my car. And people have thought that for years, but no one's ever really made it work because it's really difficult.
There's these guys down in Florida now that have a boat called an iguana.
I think I've seen that, yes.
Where that has the tank treads that drop below it and it just walks up onto the beach. I know the guy who sells that, and I'm like, can I please? He's like, yes, come to Miami and we can have a go in the iguana.
Look at this
but to me,
thing.
like,
I know, but it looks really sinister, doesn't it? It looks like sort of half sci-fi monster.
It looks like it was made for the Navy.
It's very militaristic.
Meanwhile, it's like Instagram
hose
hose and cigars on that thing.
It's good looking as a boat though. When it's in the water, it looks really neat.
I wonder how far up the beach you can go because the tank treads are smaller, like shorter in length than I was expecting.
It looks like it's going to tip up, doesn't it?
The
I
sand
think
gets
an
soft.
amphibious vehicle has to be more like a boat that can drive on land than a car that can go in the water.
It's exactly like the flying car idea. It's why the people who talk about them talk about roadable aircraft, because really they work when they're aeroplanes that you can drive, not cars that you can fly.
Yeah, you could drive it half a mile from your house to the airport with the wings folded up.
Zach flew one of those drones that takes people in it.
Oh, have you been
He
one?
flew one. He flew the Pivotal one.
I know the
Pivotal
bloke who was
Blackfly.
the test pilot, the early test pilot for all that stuff, and it's fascinating.
It was.
He didn't die.
A wild time. That was the most the
you
wildest thing
saying-
I've done in this job.
This is the one that Zach flew.
this is the
Are
one.
you saying it was terrifying?
Well, it was fascinating. I mean, technologically, the control we have now with electric motors is amazing. So it makes you don't need to adjust trim and do all these other things. But so it has 8 propellers that are all fixed. They don't rotate. So when it's flying forward, those motors are facing, they're perpendicular to the ground. But when you take off, they need to be parallel to the ground, which means I am laying down like this, like I'm like a boar that's been captured with a snare, and then you go full throttle and it picks you up, and then the whole thing rotates forward to fly forward. So
Like you're fucking
it
evil
was
Knievel ready to launch the Snake
like
River.
a cannon.
dude.
It was
And
wild.
who's actually controlling this?
Me.
He was.
I was.
Oh, you were doing it yourself?
Yeah, I thought they were going to control from the ground when the conversation started, and they're like, no, you'll be flying. And I said, are you sure? Because I am not a pilot of any kind. But again, like it's just the electric motor controllers, the way the technology is now with GPS and gyro and all these things. I basically told it where to go, and it would go there.
Oh, so it sorts it all out for you?
It sorts all that stuff out. I mean, I had to monitor engine temps and battery life and all these other things to be, to kind of be cognizant of. But as far as actually flying it, once you're up in the air, the takeoff is like terrifying.
Yes,
And once you're up there, you feel so relaxed. Well, also landing is that in reverse. So landing is like being lowered onto your head by a crane. And you're controlling the crane.
And what sort of
Wow.
altitude were you flying around at?
I think I went up to like 106. They were like, please don't go. This thing will go to I think 1,000 at max height, but they said you stay at 106 or something.
Right.
Neat.
Yeah.
right?
Oh, that's very
It was
cool though. To
pretty
have done
cool.
that.
And he
Yeah.
didn't die.
I did not die.
he
It was like
did- he
4
obviously
days
didn't
of
die.
lots of
Yeah.
sim training, and then did it. So it was really cool.
We have 3 minutes until you have to get out of here, and I don't want to make you late for Jay Leno's garage. You got to
No,
keep him
okay.
on time. So one more, and then we're calling it. Timbo says, if you did a collaboration with an automaker on a special edition model, what would be your dream car to have a James May edition?
Oh, that's a really good one. I think it's either
It
got
has to be a Panda or something,
Well,
right?
I think it's got to be like a people's car of some sort. So I think it would be, I think I would quite like to do a special edition Panda. I'm not sure what it would be. What would it be? It would have to have a special colour scheme, but what feature would it have to be mine? A gin holder,
A gin
obviously.
still. It would have a still in the back of it.
A gin dispensing device in the what we call the boot. Yes.
Yeah. That would be all right. I think,
Yeah,
I mean, for all you've done for them, I think you're the only person who's ever said nice things on television about a Fiat Panda. So
I think I probably am, aren't I?
you
Yeah.
probably are. Yeah,
Yeah. Well, I've still got it, so
well,
still,
you weren't lying.
still
How about
serves
that?
me well. Yeah.
Well, look,
the
man,
end.
this was a real treat. Thank you for
No, it
coming.
was a treat for me. It's been
And-
lovely. Thank you.
Thank you for the gin. It's very, very good. Go to jamesgin.com. The American Ram Stud.
We're actually allowed.
Does Ram Stud mean something, or is it just rearranging the letters of mustard?
It's rearranging the letters of mustard because your Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and whatever wouldn't let us call it mustard
Oh, that's
because they said
funny.
that might confuse people. But now we are allowed to call it mustard. So in the new version, which has the new label that we've just launched, it's back to being called American mustard.
Oh, okay. So
which
this is a
what it's meant
limited
to be.
edition error bottle.
Effectively, that's the misprint bottle. Yes.
Collect
I
them,
love that
collect them all you can.
The ATF goes, people might think this is mustard. Like, it's a clear liquid.
The way they expressed it was people might think it was a condiment and put it on hot dogs. And as you
How
say,
bad would
it's
that
a
be?
clear liquid. Well, it wouldn't do it. It would cool it down a bit.
Sometimes
but
self-selection is okay.
Anyway, it's now called American mustard, which is what it was supposed to be called because it was our little thank you to the American people. in the
Well,
form
most
of a
importantly, it's
really
burger
delicious.
mustard tasting
It's really
gin.
good.
Absolutely delicious.
We are taking the piss a bit, just to be clear. It's our joke. We think we're being funny, but we have actually come up with, I think, quite a nice gin in the process.
Both can be true. Things
Yeah.
can be funny and delicious, like
Yeah.
beating Gordon Ramsay in a cooking contest.
Yes.
Yeah, even if the pie itself was a bit second rate. But anyway,
Well.
they liked it. That's what counts.
The judges liked it. Listen, you only had to impress 3 to win. You're
Yes.
in the game.
Exactly. Yep.
Well, what a treat, and thank you for all of the hours of entertainment over the last 25
No, well, thank
years.
you for watching and thank you for having me. It's fantastic to be back in California. I absolutely love it. And if I'm ever going to move anywhere other than home, to be honest, it's probably going to be here.
Great. Well, we'll keep your car safe.
We have a
Yes, I'll-
complimentary
I'll-
earthquake for you on your way out.
Yeah. And how about we got an earthquake?
Yeah, we got a
during
real
that show?
earthquake, and I
That's
know where
insane.
to put my cars when I come here now.
All
so-
right. Well, thanks to our patrons for such good questions. I'm sorry we didn't have time for all of them, but you know how it is when the guest is real fucking good. We'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Look forward.